Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Anna Yee. I'm a WCS board member and co-chair of the Entrepreneurship Committee. Welcome to this month's eCircle with Ella Hazard and Valentina Rapa. eCircle is a program designed for entrepreneurs who identify as women to communicate, reflect, and connect with one another. Welcome if you are new to the program, and welcome back for any returning attendees. Now let's move on to the agenda. So first, I'll give you some information about WCS and how to get involved, and then we'll bring on Ella and Valentina, today's speakers, who will talk about how we can develop and strengthen our entrepreneurship mindset. After the talk, we'll have time for discussion and questions. It should be a really engaging conversation, so I'm very excited. And then, of course, the last 20 to 30 minutes will be dedicated to networking. But before we get the conversation going here are some tips and tricks for respectful and engaging conversations. Boom. You all know this, but please write your full name on your Zoom profile. We would love to know who you all are. Turn on your video if you feel comfortable. We would love to see your faces and make this a little bit more engaging, less of a webinar here. WCS volunteers, if you can put a little asterisk next to your name. If you are interested in talking to a WCS volunteer, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Out of respect for our speakers, please mute yourself during the presentation. We encourage you to add your LinkedIn profiles to the chat and connect with other attendees. The more you get involved with the event, the more you'll benefit from it. And first off, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are. So WCS is a nonprofit organization originally founded in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are now in 13 countries with a membership base of more than 500 professional women and men. The organization aims to support women in their careers in the clean tech industry. And we're going on 13 years now, which is impressive considering we're primarily run by volunteers. And we hold monthly virtual events such as this one, in-person socials, and professional development workshops. You can check out our events page for more information and register for any upcoming events. Now, let me introduce you to today's moderator, Lena Sukumar. Is an experienced engineer turned marketer with 15 years of experience in product marketing, branding, and partnerships in verticals such as sustainable agriculture, carbon farming, digital health and wellness, skincare. She's passionate about climate tech and sustainability and currently works as a fractional CMO for companies in the Bay Area and volunteers on the Entrepreneurship Committee. So please help me welcome Lena Sukumar to the stage.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everyone. First, we'd like to thank Armstrong World Industries for being the sponsor of this event. Armstrong World Industries, or AWI, is a trusted leader in the design and manufacture of ceiling and wall systems solutions in the Americas, committed to building a better future. AWI's broad product portfolio provides innovative solutions that leverage science, design, and sustainability to support industry needs. We'll be dropping their website as well as social media handles on the chat so you can check them out. And without much ado, we will I would love to introduce today's speakers. For today's keynote, we have Ella Hazard, who is the Managing Director at Arktura Ventures, an innovative branch of AWI, dedicated to exploring new solutions in architecture, design, construction, and engineering. With a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion, Ella champions a human-centered approach in team building and innovation, emphasizing the value of misfits and non-traditional paths in enriching collaborative environments. Known for her unique perspective as a sparkly mixed-race kid from a one-stoplight town, Ella leverages her background and empathetic insights to drive meaningful innovation and reshape industry norms. Her leadership is marked by dedication to fostering environments where diverse teams can thrive, underscored by her belief in the critical role of varied experiences in achieving successful outcomes. Welcome, Ella. And we next have Valentina Rappa, who's the Senior Sustainability Manager, Circular Economy at Repley. Welcome, Valentina. Valentina is leading the change for sustainability consulting services and all things related to the circular economy. When she's not presenting webinars or speaking on Repley's behalf, Valentina partners hand in hand with Repley's most innovative enterprise clients, working to understand the current state of their circularity journey and helping them plan a future that centers circularity within their business operations. Let's give them a round of applause to both Ella and Valentina.
Well, thank you so much, Lena. That was such a lovely introduction. Really appreciate the time here and our engagement with WCS. It's been an organization that's been important in my life and my career for a number of years. So yeah, today, Valentina and I just want to kind of talk to you about something that we've been working on a little bit, and not just the content of what we're working on, but maybe more about how we've been working and sort of what entrepreneurship could look like in a lot of different facets. So I do believe it's a mindset. It's not a role or a title. And I think that's often something that's also held tightly by a close-knit group of people. And I actually believe that it's for everyone. And so that's a little bit of what we want to talk about today, but we'll do it through the lens of circularity and a project that we're working on. And so Valentina and I will chat for a bit and kind of share with you what we're up to. But also we would like to invite a couple of folks later in the conversation. We've got two other awesome women that are on the same project team so that you can hear not just two perspectives, but four, and what entrepreneurship means for all of us. So bear with us. Let's get started. Lena did a great job introducing Armstrong, but wanted to show you some pretty pictures of what we do. So yes, we work in the acoustical ceiling space. That could be everything from the very sort of standard gridded squares on the ceiling to something that looks beautiful, like what you're seeing on the screen right now. And they also do a lot of sort of acoustical products that are, if you see the next slide, kind of more like the cool, I don't know, interiors that you'd see. This here we have to show you, this is the 4 last covers of our sustainability report. We did our benchmarking in 2019, and you'll hear a bit from our director of sustainability a bit later, but we're really proud to share with you that the project that we're working on is directly in support of these goals. And our commitment to this is strong. Slide, please. This is the 4 people that you'll hear from today. So it's me and Valentina a bit first, and then you'll hear from Kelsey, our Director of Sustainability here at AWI, and Moti Tavasoli, who's with me on the team at Arktura Ventures as a venture specialist. We can come back to this later. We're happy to share our contact info with you. Slide, please. So here, just to frame this in a little bit of context, this is kind of some of the cool work that Arktura does, which is a separate company that Armstrong bought a few years ago. So they do a bunch of interesting, some acoustical, some lighting. But the outgrowth of this acquisition was that there was a pretty entrepreneurial spirit in the young company in Arktura. And Armstrong, when they purchased it, we decided to make a little venture called Arktura Ventures. So it works closely and is wholly owned by Armstrong and works closely with a bunch of the different other acquisitions or sister companies. But it is sort of its own little entity, and it does behave in a different way than the broader company does. And it's important to mention this because what we're so excited about is the way that folks from Arktura Ventures, folks from Armstrong World Industries, and folks from Valentina's company, Repley, like the hybridity of the team and kind of everybody coming together with different expertise and different perspectives has been actually the biggest sort of joy and sort of, I think, the most, I don't know, one of the best teams I've ever worked on, but also with everybody bringing their own expertise, we've been able to move the needle in a way that I've not really experienced before in my life. So that's part of what we want to share today. Slide, please. So I'll let Valentina introduce herself and what Repley is all about.
Yeah, thank you, Ella. And hello, everyone. It's great to be here. I am, as was mentioned earlier, I'm a senior sustainability manager at Repley, and Repley is a tech startup We are a tech company at our core, but a lot of the work that we do is really using technology to connect folks across our network. So we really are on a mission to build a community where we're keeping materials in use for as long as possible, and we're able to find the next best use for either a product or a material. The hope is that we can avoid the amount of stuff that we're sending to landfill. We can also avoid the amount of new products that we're procuring on an annual basis. So trying to stop buying new stuff, use what you have, use it for as long as possible. If you're not going to use it anymore, there's some other organization, I promise you, that is within your community that probably would want to use that item or that material. So that's really the basis of what we're focused on. We've been around for about 7 going on 8 years. And in our next slide, I can show just at a high level across the US, which is a majority of our focus right now, as we also are looking internationally to expand. But across the US, we have a really large ecosystem of network partners that fall within 3,000 organizations. We engage with them either as a nonprofit or a government entity or a for-profit, and they either are working with us to supply products and materials and put them onto our tech platform for other organizations to grab, or they are in demand and they need stuff. So we work with a lot of nonprofits that need products and materials and don't have a budget to buy that kind of stuff. And that's where we're often connecting large corporations with small organizations in communities so that we're keeping stuff in use, but we're also building those relationships between organizations. And then on the next slide, I'll just speak to at a high level what our products look like. So I mentioned we're a tech company at our core. I'm coming in more from a services side. So I work with the Armstrong team in a consulting capacity, and we're looking at circularity of their products and materials and waste. But across the Reaply business, we often work with organizations to either help them know what they have. It's kind of wild how little people know about all the assets that they spend tons of money on. It's like they buy it and then they're like, oh, we didn't even know we had this thing. It was in the closet. But we help them know what they have. And then once you know what you have, we try to get you to use it as much as possible. Stop buying something new. Use this thing because now we know that you have it. So we're tracking it in our technology. You can see where it's located and you can get more value out of it. And then if you're in a position where you're like, okay, we're not going to use this anymore, trying to find some other organization that will either buy it from you or will receive it as a donation to impact your local community. So that's more the lens from the tech side of things, but the work that I do in the sustainability consulting services is often designed to support our technology and work with customers more on the relationship side of things. And I think that's all I have for the Reaply side. Yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Ella, to start our discussion.
Great. Yeah. So I'll share a little bit about maybe the origins of this project. You see here a slide that shows construction and demolition waste and some other waste streams. And Moti and I got curious at the beginning of last year about what happens to buildings when they die. So I come from an architecture background. Moti does as well. A bunch of the folks at Arktura did. And so that is still at the core of my interest. Acoustics are wonderful, but the broader built environment is sort of my lineage and my history. And so I got curious, given that we have a little bit more flexibility and freedom to explore and investigate the things that we're curious about. Yeah, what happens? And it turns out a lot of buildings go to landfill when they die. Moti and I visited, I don't know, 6 maybe in the last year to kind of see what was happening. Some good, some bad, but realized that Kelsey and team here at Armstrong had done a really good job about defining the sustainability and circularity goals to understand what success would or what good would look like here at Armstrong. But we thought that maybe from a ventures perspective, we could take those goals as a challenge to make a new business, and that maybe by achieving those goals, it might not cost us money, but what if it could actually make us money? So the first part was to get curious about the existing system and understand from a circular standpoint what was and was not happening. And that would allow us to figure out how we might participate. So on the next slide, I think you'll see, this might be familiar to a lot of you, but it's worth putting up here because it's kind of the easiest way of visualizing. We're kind of working mostly on the right-hand side of this diagram, being that we're in the manufacturing. But the premise of this, done by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, is that the closer you stay, once you've got something in service, and kind of what Reaply's ethos is the closer you stay to keeping something repaired and kind of functional, the better. And as you kind of move farther and farther outside of the circle, there are sort of other ways that you can avoid landfill or avoid end of life. And so we've kind of, if I'm being honest, started at the outside and are kind of working our way back in. And I think that's probably not uncommon. But once we understood that a lot of our product was actually ending up in landfill, we thought, well, what's a different way that we could think about this? And could we figure out how to build a new business that would generate money on the way to achieving these sustainability goals, or our 50% reduction by 2030? So Moti and I and a couple of other folks in the ventures team and some folks from Armstrong set about trying to figure out what that might look like, or where to start. And we realized that a lot of our things were ending up in landfill because ceiling tiles actually are not heavy by weight. And so they weren't contributing a ton to the LEED credits, whereas things like glass or concrete or wood were much more dense. And so you would get bigger bang for your buck when trying to recycle or recover or reclaim that. So we figured out, well, we're in the process of figuring out, realized that actually the best place to start was to define value or make it worth something by turning it into something else, perhaps. And so that's where Reaply came in. So we got really curious about who's good at trying to figure out where other things can go. And it just so happens that Valentina and some of her colleagues, not only do they work with the technology platform, but the consulting services that Valentina heads up was precisely what we needed. So about a year ago, I think actually, pretty close, we started working together to try to figure out what other markets we could take and use ceiling tile in some way, either whole or reprocessed, to turn into some other beneficial use. I won't go into great depth about that because I don't want to bore you all, but it's been a really fun, wild ride to figure out how to develop and create demand where there hasn't been anymore. And that's been an incredibly entrepreneurial, I think, experience for us. So I will leave it here. Valentina, is there something you want to say about this slide from your perspective that would be helpful or add to the conversation?
I mean, I love that you touched on keeping things closer in the smaller circles. I think we've seen throughout a lot of conversations within the realm of a circular economy that there's activities that are stuff going on in our own lives or large organizations are participating in that often will contribute to other arrows in this circle that maybe have less impact. But I've always, when you're trying to just look at how I can make the most value out of this product or material, I do think it's always important to try to keep it as close as possible to its original form. And trying to think of very creative ways of doing that has been fun with this team. Yeah, I know I'm excited to just dive more into the working together on the project and how the dynamic was for the team.
Awesome, great. Well, let's go ahead and see what the next slide has to say for us. So this is maybe a better description of or a visual description of sort of how we've teamed, which I think is as important. I guess my belief is always that the who kind of defines the how, and the how sometimes defines the what. And so starting with the who is the most important thing. But this is sort of how the team has worked and what each team brings to the table. Moti does a great job of building these kind of very organic diagrams, but you can see here that Armstrong, well, Arktura Ventures is a part of Armstrong, but we're a little unit that kind of operates with some autonomy on its own, and is not subject to quite all of the same sort of, I guess, requirements and or systems or processes that like a regular innovation or research and development group would be. But we work very closely with Armstrong's, both of those units within Armstrong. But Armstrong brings to the table the sustainability team with Kelsey to help define what those goals are and to work across leadership to kind of do that sort of high level strategic thinking and kind of administration of said sustainability report and the goals that are in it. We're supported also by the R&D experts. We talk a lot with sales. It doesn't matter what we want to do if our customers don't want that, right? So it's important to stay close to the people who support the business. Finance, when we're making a business case, essentially the whole point of this project that we're working on is that there's a business case for sustainability. It shouldn't cost us money. We might be able to make money and also stay closer to our customers by doing the right thing. And then, of course, we're very close to all of our manufacturing and very process driven to try to understand where the opportunities for waste recovery or diversion live. So all of that comes from sort of the big company, and then our little company, Arktura Ventures, has all kinds of external relationships and kind of works within and across both external experts and I guess industry groups, but also and brings a lot of that back to Armstrong as well. So we have our own relationships with architects and designers. We do a lot to kind of reach out and understand the pains and problems of facility managers. When you design a project at beginning of life, you also have to think about what's happening throughout the life of that and who has to touch it, maintain it, think about it. And I think Valentina could probably attest to that as well. If we're talking about things that live in buildings, then both the users and the folks that have to take care of that are important. But also general contractors and folks, particularly at the end of life, demolition or selective demolition specialists, we've been particularly curious about and trying to understand what breed of person this is, and how to entice them to do things a bit differently or what their pain points are. And so when we engaged with Reaply brought a bunch more to us. Valentina, do you want to speak to sort of the bubbles underneath yours?
Yeah, definitely. There's folks within the Reaply organization that are more in the sustainability professional space, and so have been working in the sustainability field and specifically more circular economy and materials field for many years, and have developed a lot of relationships with other organizations. So I think the biggest part that we are often doing is tapping into partners. And when I showed that map earlier of kind of hotspots of where we are engaging with folks across the United States, that is probably the core of what our business does. We build in technology so that you can scale it, and you can track data and pull findings from those engagements. But the core of what it is really people talking to other people, hearing about cool stuff that's happening, and then being like, oh, I can get value out of that as well. How do I tap into this? And that's really a big part of our role in this project, has been like, how do we share with the masses all this exciting, cool opportunities we're doing, find out who can get value out of this, and vice versa from our end, Armstrong and Reaply end, for us to also gain value. So we have folks that are at these organizations. They could be in a sustainability field, but also similar to Ella, they could be in a procurement role. They could be in an R&D type of role. It really depends on how that organization is designed. And we find that sustainability, of course, is becoming a part of most people's roles in some way, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller, but that is where, folks are sitting all across an organization and have a role in this process and are interested, even if it's not their core responsibility. That's probably been one of the coolest findings throughout this whole process.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. And as I'm listening to you speak, it kind of occurs to me that kind of what Arktura Ventures or the venturing aspect or this team has done for Armstrong, you guys kind of do industry wide. It's like a lot of connecting, a lot of relationship building, a lot of listening to sort of pain points and sort of organizing common solutions or solutions that will work across, larger organizations, which is something that I don't know that we expected to find, but did and are actually taking great pleasure in, because once you find like a good solution or something that works for most people, it kind of starts a snowball rolling of like, oh, well, what about this and what about that? You kind of alluded to that a little bit, and people become very motivated to help you, which is a wonderful feeling.
Definitely.
Yeah, so next slide. I don't know what we've got next. But yeah, so I think maybe we could spend a little bit of time talking. That's a little bit about, I guess, the what that we're doing, but I guess I would be very curious, given that this is a conversation about entrepreneurship, to ask you some questions, Valentina, and maybe also to share a little bit about, I guess, our paths towards our current roles. We both have kind of weird and unique jobs, which are cool and fun and interesting. But I don't know, is this what you wanted to do when you grew up, or when you grow up? Did you intend to do this?
I gotta be honest, I don't think I knew this existed as an option. I would have been like, yeah, I want to do that if I knew it existed. But it's funny because I come from a family of entrepreneurs. On my father's side, he's immigrated to the United States. And so like many immigrants, like you're often going into entrepreneurship as your jobs. And my father was in that, mom was in that, and now like several of my sisters are in that space. And I didn't. I did go like a pretty, I went to college, did the degree. I did do a degree in environmental engineering, so it was aligned with the environmental space that I'm working in now. But towards the end of that is where I learned about the circular economy. At that point, it was it was like, it was going on, things were happening, organizations were doing things, but I think it was still a little less. It was probably 5 to 6 years ago. And that was, I think, very early on. I was just like, this is cool. I can connect this to my life. I think there's cool skills that I can build by doing this kind of work. And I could see a direct impact if I'm working in this space. But I didn't know where that would land me in jobs and what companies actually would value this kind of skill in the space of circular economy. It's really cool to see that the circular economy has grown so much as there's been an emphasis on sustainability across manufacturers and other companies across all industries. But so I'd say in my sense, I was a little more linear than I think you were. But I would say with these roles is probably like projects like this is where this pulling out skills or like building upon skills that I didn't previously need to use, because working at a startup, it is very entrepreneurial. We're just testing stuff. We're seeing if it works. It fails. Okay, next thing. And it's just talking to people, figuring out where our overlap is in value and interests, and then building on that and finding opportunities to collaborate. So I'd say that sense, since joining Reaply about 2 years ago, that's where I've really switched over to more of that space, which is new to me and a little uncomfortable. And it's like taken some time to get used to, but I'm enjoying the process very much. What about you?
I love that. I think I'm learning things about you just now, which I really is also awesome after a year of working together. Strangely, you say my parents are also both incredibly entrepreneurial and maybe not incredibly successful at it, at least in their first tries, but it was sort of that spirit that I kind of ran away from at the first. I was like, I don't want this to be that hard. I'm going to try to take a traditional path. And so I went to school for architecture, and then but also like didn't like it and kept trying really hard to like it, became registered, and I maintained my registration, but like just tried it. I tried it so many different ways because I was trying to find a home in it, that I ended up practicing architecture, then moving into construction. I worked as an owner's rep for a number of years, then moved into fabrication, where I landed at Arktura. And that's when something clicked for me, because Arktura was a startup. I was employee number 1 and had gone to college with the 3 founders. And so I realized there that I really liked the messy front end of things. And it was kind of crazy and like very not risky, but like we didn't know what we were doing. And that was both terrifying and fun. And that's when something clicked for me there, that it was like I could take all of this long tail of understanding of the built environment, but apply that differently and try a bunch of different things around it. So I made it a few years there with them, and then went to start a bunch of other companies and lived the startup life for a while, which was both fun but hard, unpredictable, and hard to make a living consistently at. And so when this role kind of came to my attention, it was like all of the fun parts of entrepreneurship or starting new businesses, but with a little bit more security, and kind of the support from a big company was really attractive. And so I don't know, I've been in this role for almost 3 years now, and really enjoying and still learning kind of how to navigate. I'd never worked for this big of a company before. So I don't know, like definitely a nonlinear path, but I think it was exciting to kind of understand myself and to grow through all of those challenges, even though at the time it felt horrible and like my career was like a yard sale and that my resume didn't look great. But I think now I can kind of see the through line because of it. So I guess maybe if I could ask you another question, maybe more sort of project specific, I'm kind of curious. I know why Reaply was attractive to Armstrong. You guys had all of the right things for us. Not only in terms of how you chose to operate, but the team itself felt great. Everybody we met was just like, yes, yes, yes. More and more, like the vibes were good, and the team spirit felt kind of like instantly comfortable. I'm curious why Armstrong was interesting to you guys at all. Can you share?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, of course, the Armstrong name has a reputation to it, and there's a ton of amazing stuff that Armstrong's done. So, like, as a small organization, of course, you're excited when you hear an interest in a project this creative, from a large organization. And I think, of course, it's unique that it is Arktura Ventures coming in and really leading it from a ventures perspective, which was a big part of like the excitement. Because we were like, I mean, anyone that meets Ella, I'm sure everyone on this call can say like, you see Ella and they're like, oh, she's cool. Like, I would like to work with Ella. She's a blast. And there's just so much fun, engaging, creative, very like safe opportunities to test things as a team and know that we all like trust each other in the process of testing things. We're all working towards the same end goal, and we know this might succeed or this might fail. Like, it's not that there's a given success like route that we're expecting for this. And I think that's, you know, a little scary at times, but also why we're all doing this. It's risky, it's exciting, and it's something that like keeps you going. You're trying as hard as you can at all moments because you know that it's not a given success. So I think from the outset, when the team heard about this opportunity, we were just like, this is so cool. Like, we would love if all product manufacturers were thinking in the way that you're thinking. And they're not. They're not like, when they're collaborating with other organizations, they're not doing it in such an open way where it actually feels like a collaboration. Like, this is a very much a team project. It is not you hiring Reaply to do this work for you and then you taking it and doing something with it or not doing anything with it. It's like, we're all working, we all have roles in this project. We're all bringing our value in and we're all learning from each other. I've learned so much from you and Moti and our other team member, Bill, who's not on this call. And it's just really cool. So I think in that respect, early on, we knew like, yes, the energy was right, but also like the fact that there was even interest in a project like this was an amazing sign.
I love that. Thank you. This is not, I promise, not just me seeking compliments. I swear.
You're just like, yeah, that's me.
Maybe that actually bears in mind the fact that I should describe that Arktura Ventures isn't strictly just a venture arm for Armstrong, where you would, like a corporate venture where you would strictly just sort of place investments, where we would consider ourselves a venture studio, whereby we have a project that we will start and work on ourselves until we figure out what strategic investment would look like alongside that. And so the point about us rolling our sleeves up and getting messy together is actually important and at the spirit of how we like to work. And I think different from a lot of other places. Because I think also, if you don't understand your own problems really thoroughly from the inside out, your success rate of what good looks like or what solutions are useful it's hit or miss. But I wonder if like this might actually be an interesting time, since you've brought everybody else up, to spotlight Kelsey and Moti and let them give a little bit of their introduction about who they are, their backgrounds, and what brought them to this team as well. I see that Moti is spotlighted. Moti, do you want to come off mute and introduce yourself a bit?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. My name is Moti Tavasoli. I'm based in Los Angeles. My background was in architecture, and I did work in an office for a hot, quick second, and then very quickly pivoted to product design, architectural product design, just because it was, for me, it was like a faster, quicker, very test-oriented environment, and I really liked that. So I was doing that at Arktura for about 7 years. It was very creative. I really enjoyed it. And then kind of had a pivotal moment where I thought, okay, I've been working on the front end of buildings, a ton of, actually designing buildings and the systems that goes into it, as well as products that go into it. And I thought to myself, well, it'd be kind of cool to like go across the rainbow and see what happens to the buildings as they die, which Ella was describing. It was like very interesting to see that maybe there isn't as much thinking about that end in the very front and beginning. Like, as designers, we have a lot of power in saying what should or should not go into buildings. And so I felt like there was a little bit of disconnect. So I felt pretty good about like being on this side, and maybe that will give me some perspective if I ever choose to go back to the other side. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and I will pass it off to Kelsey.
Hi everyone, excited to be here as well. I've really loved working with Ella and the team, and really excited to get more partnership with Reaply. Just as a quick introduction, I've been with Armstrong World Industries, I think about the same time as you, Ella, about 3 years. I think we kind of started around the same time. Quickly moved into the director of sustainability role through a little bit of a battlefield promotion, but have really enjoyed the challenge and really focusing in on the corporate strategy. And one of our more challenging targets was the circularity target. And so we needed kind of the vast different, viewpoints. We needed the different expertise. And so really excited to see this kind of partnership and project continue to grow. Because that definitely has been a challenge, especially in the built environment and a whole, circularity, as I'm sure people on the call can attest to, is a challenge. So yeah, excited to be here and talk more about this project and kind of how the entrepreneur, kind of spirit has really helped us in this area.
Awesome. Well, thank you for introducing yourselves. It's such a pleasure to work on a team that has so many powerhouse women on it. And I also will say that I think that that might have something to do with the success that we've had, is that we're truly collaborative. And there, like, I can't tell a lie. We have a bunch of really awesome guys on our team as well, but they're friends. You know what I mean? They're a squad. So we've designed a little bit of an experience in some ways to get to know ourselves and each other and the sort of feelings on this team, or kind of perspectives on this team. So we're going to ask some questions of each other, but the other reason we kind of designed the next bit of this way is hopefully that this inspires our behavior through our networking session and through our Q&A, that this feels conversational, and we might have as many questions for you all as you do for us. So we're going to do a little sort of round robin exercise for the next 10 minutes or so, but then are really excited to engage with you all. So I will kick us off, and I have a question for Kelsey, which is, I'm very curious. So we kind of operate, I'm on the sort of, we're all here with our heads to the noses to the grindstone, kind of trying to figure out how to make this happen. And I think that sometimes I might forget and or take for granted the fact that you are blocking and tackling at a higher level, dealing with leadership. Like, can you share with me or this team and this group, what are some of the challenges that you think that we might not see? I mean, I don't want you, you don't have to disclose everything, but I'm very curious, like, what am I not paying attention to that would be helpful, that I could see better?
No, and I think you guys do a great job of this, but one thing that comes to mind is it's a tricky balance of, like, hurry up and wait. I feel like, patience is key. This is a newer space that we're getting into, a newer type of project. And so you guys have been tackling that kind of educational learning curve with a lot of our senior leadership, and have been very great at that patience part, especially as, for such a typical kind of more linear manufacturing company. We want to see the ROI. We want to see, upfront, what's the bottom line of this presentation, and having to kind of get that group of thinkers to be like, no, we're going on a journey together. Listen to the full story. Like, we'll get you there. I think you guys have definitely, ridden that wave well, but I think that's, definitely a challenge, coming from the company perspective into a project like this. Is, we're so ready and we're excited about this. We want to see the bottom line, and getting a group of very linear or, company thinkers to see that journey, to kind of have some patience on our side as well, has definitely, I think, been one of the bigger challenges. I was going to say, I have a question kind of on the flip side of that, and maybe Moti, I think this would be great for your perspective. What are the challenges that you've experienced dealing with, a larger company like this that has maybe some set ways of working or thinking?
Great question. So we, as Ella mentioned, we're a small team. We are very open, very curious. We're tapping on everyone's shoulder. We're, tapping on Replay to reach out to, like, a wide range of people. And it's all very fast and furious. Our projects have been like 4-month intervals, which is important because we're scouts of Armstrong. We need to, like, go out quickly, get a lay of the land, come back with findings. And so think of yourself, think of the 4-month, and then think about Armstrong, which is a 160-year-old publicly traded company. And it's there's a lot of layers of and hierarchy of decision making. There's a lot of, like, approvals and systems and processes that are in place. And I think for me, the very interesting notion was that these companies work at different timelines. And we need to, as this team, trying to make a project happen, we need to marry those two timelines, especially if we're trying to actually implement our findings, if we're trying to bring that new business that Ella was discussing. And we need financials behind that. We need the ROI that you mentioned. We need to, like, stick ourselves into the strategy planning or the capital expenses, all those things. And so for Armstrong, those things, the calendar, the corporate calendar is very set. And for us, we have to kind of shoehorse, is that the word? Ourselves into into the calendar. That doesn't always work because it might be a time that we need to, provide numbers for things, but maybe we're not exactly at the decision making ourselves. So that's been challenging and a good learning. Doesn't always work, but I think, Kelsey, you mentioned that it does help to bring the senior leadership into our process and let them know where we're facing challenges, where there are obstacles that are slowing us down, to give them, the number with the pretty bow on top. And so, yeah, I would say that was something that was new for me, because also Arktura small, like everything moved quickly. So I was very much used to that, like, let's move quickly. So actually, for me, that was a question I had for Valentina, who has a lot of these similar relationships with other manufacturing and maybe other companies. That, speaking of navigating challenges, what is one tool in your toolbox that you find yourself reaching again and again to navigate those challenges?
Yeah, there's a lot of tools, but I would say this is nothing new. I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to give you something that you're like, never heard this before. But honestly, like, the reality is, like, if you don't communicate clearly, consistently throughout a project, like the type of work that we're working on is a lot of different team members from different groups. If you're within the Armstrong Arktura space, you're sitting on different teams, you have different priorities, you have other projects you're working on. I think throughout all of this, we found that if we're all not communicating clearly with each other on what we really can do and what we really can deliver and when we can actually deliver it by, and being honest about in our communication, I think that none of this really works. And there's times throughout every project where you notice, like, oh, communication's slipping. We're not, all on the same page about stuff. There's clearly stuff that have been miscommunicated. And then just level setting as a team to be like, this is where we're at, whether we like it or not. This is the status we're at right now. Let's all talk about that and be open about it. And then now work together to find a route to either adjust or continue forward if it's working great. But that is something that I think having those little checkpoints throughout a project period, or if you're just on a team and your everyday work with the team, I feel like it's often overlooked, and it's often assumed that people just have this skill, and it's just no, like, it's a soft skill for sure, but everyone doesn't have this skill, and some people really struggle with it. I do think it's one of those things that organizations could maybe work a little harder on training people on this skill, and like putting it into actionable ways of how are you a good communicator in certain scenarios. But that for sure is always one that comes up. And I know as the team here, I gotta say, you're all amazing communicators. So thank you for what you do. I have a question for you, Ella, another fabulous communicator, but totally separate from skill sets. I think I'm just curious that, you're working in a role that's centered within the sustainability space, and with a focus on circular economy of products. And I think, you mentioned earlier and in the chat, apparently we have a ton of architects here. This is very exciting. I'm not an architect, but honestly, I've learned so much from these two, Ella and Moti architects, that it's really cool to see what the architecture world looks like, as the built environment is now getting this kind of spotlight on sustainability, where everyone's talking about it within the built environment. I am curious, like, from that background of architecture, what are like the skills, the learnings that you're pulling into your work today that allows you to feel like, oh yeah, I can move faster and I can bring in a new perspective because of this background?
That's a really good question, Valentina. Thank you. I could take it from the architecture standpoint and maybe use that as a lens for sort of the rest of the world. Like, the yard sale of a career or a yard sale of a resume that I mentioned actually is the thing that's been the most helpful. It's because I couldn't get comfy in one place. I didn't stay in one place for too long, maybe, I don't know, 3 years at a time. And then I would move on to something different and try it around the same space, but try it from a different perspective. And so what I would say is one of my favorite and the most validating book I think I've ever read is Range by David Epstein. And it talks about sort of like this crazy focus we've had on the 10,000 hours of like deep experience on one thing and how that's great for some people. But if you have everybody sort of focused on their one thing, like who's going to connect them to each other, right? And so I was kind of always shaming myself about like not being able to like stick in one thing. And it was like really what I think was my curiosity, honestly, of like wanting to try and see things differently. And what I've realized is that no matter who you are, what you're doing, like that kind of behavior is necessary to kind of connect. So, and that's been invaluable as it relates to this project and as it relates to like me being able to understand the pain point from the architect's standpoint, from the contractor standpoint, from the demolition contractor, like all of those different things allowed us to sort of be empathetic and figure out how to solve the, like when you're bringing the circle full, everybody has to play in it and everybody has to participate. And if you can understand everybody's perspective. So the thing I would say is whether it's in this example or others is as many experiences as you can sort of draw together and have, like those are the things that actually allow you to be better at this. So I'm going to stop there. I know we had more rounds of questions to do, but I think we are woefully over our time. Is that right, Anna?
Yeah, thank you so much, y'all. We have a couple minutes if you wanted to engage kind of audience questions. I'll bring Lena onto the stage to kind of moderate that as well.
I was looking at the questions, but in the chat box, I don't think we have any specific questions except like Ella and Valentina said that there are a lot of architects just really excited about what you guys are doing. So that's really nice to hear, but I don't see any specific questions. So I think you can go on for about 5 minutes if you guys want to riff with each other and talk about any other questions you wanted to discuss. Because we're all learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about the industry, about sustainability, circular economy. So it's all wonderful.
Can we ask a question of the audience? I mean, if nobody wants to talk, that's fine. But I'm always just curious about, because you've heard a bunch of different sort of perspectives and paths toward the same thing. I'm curious about sort of what do we think like the common or defining goals of an entrepreneur are? Like, what does that mean to everybody else? Would anybody be brave and want to talk about their experience?
I can go if you like. I guess to me personally, having worked at a lot of startups and now on my own kind of consulting entrepreneurial journey, it's all about making an impact, whether small or big. Big is great, but also aspiring for something that makes an impact in a person, a company's, group of individuals' lives. That's what I believe really drives entrepreneurs.
So can I ask a follow-up question to that, Lena? So startups are like, I think sometimes can be like a scary leap to take for some people. Like what made you want to do that in the first place? And like, how did that come about just in your experience?
Yeah, I think someone mentioned in the chat box that architecture is a great solid foundation to think about a systems approach to things. And I myself, I'm an engineer, so I believe engineering also gives you the rigor and the systems approach thinking to things. So I moved personally to marketing because I was really interested in understanding what makes consumers and customers buy things. And the opportunities to work with startups was super exciting for me personally, because having worked at bigger corporations in the past and in very structured ways, it gives me the opportunity to apply that structure and bring some sort of order to chaos. And just solve multiple problems. Like I know you guys, a lot of you at Reaply, especially smaller companies, tech startup, every day is different. Every day you're solving a different type of problem. It's not one unique thing. You may be a marketing leader, but you're not just solving marketing. You're doing partnerships, you're doing business development, you're solving problems for sales. You're talking to engineers and figuring things out about how to meet customer demands and so on. So I think that personally to me is quite exciting, but having the rigor of and structure of working at big organizations, really bringing that over and helping problem solve. I see some messages in the chat window. I don't know if there are questions.
Yeah, I saw one question come up and I got called out, so I'm happy to take that one, and then maybe if anyone else has anything to add, of course, feel free. But the question in the chat was, what are some methods to educate leadership around sustainability? And that, I think that's a great question, because that's really like a lot of my work is dealing with people that maybe aren't in the sustainability space, maybe have different views. And so one method I definitely take is trying to meet people where they're at. Don't talk about the bigger picture, the larger issues that we're all, facing on this planet. Talk about, okay, you want to save energy, you want to reduce waste, and kind of translating it into, maybe some terms that they might understand a little bit more, or that is just a little bit more of like common knowledge, kind of, teetering away from the more technical side of things has been really, what I've found successful, but also kind of making it digestible, not having a 3-hour training session where it's just me talking, because I can talk for 3 hours about this. If I really, if they put me on the stage, I will keep going with that microphone. So I think, tackling it one step at a time, and helping it through the change, I think as people kind of get their heads around it, staying with them, staying, consistent. And I was on a call earlier today where another sustainability professional basically said sustainability is change management. And so it's kind of helping them through, if it's a systems change, going from linear to circular thinking, staying on it, I think has been another success I've seen in that space.
I think that's really helpful. And I would love to tack on the end that it's like one of the things I think the end of this question is kind of hinting toward metrics. Like if it's not ROI, like what are the other things that help define what good looks like? And I think that is initially was a bit of a struggle for this team because we were kind of still searching and scanning and kind of like diverging in our thinking. And as we start to converge on what we think is good, it's been up to us to define what good metrics are. Is it not just dollars, but the amount of volume of things diverted? Is it the number of like end markets or new products we can make out of reprocessed ceiling tile? Like like we're still trying to figure that out. And I think that that's what's been kind of fun about being we're still in the messy middle of this, but trying to figure out how to define that before it gets defined for us, right?
We have one more question. Fatima, would you like to ask your question out aloud?
I
I
also
see
see
a couple hands
raised.
raised. Yeah, Nagasri, I see that your hand was first.
Yeah.
Pop in.
Thank you, guys. And I'd like to answer Ella's question, like what motivated me to be an entrepreneur. I was an architect for 10 years, I'll say. And then I pivoted. I did an MBA and went into the renewable and storage. But the reason I would say impact is one thing, but systemically for women getting leadership positions and having those opportunities are so hard. So as an architect, I always got handed like loads of work, like hard work, but not the opportunity to join the business team to grow the business. And even in the renewable energy space, that's the same, is leadership looks so different everywhere. And so I was very confident that I am a great leader, and I wanted to give myself the opportunity to make the impact and be the leader. And that's why I chose, one of the reasons why I chose is to lead the way, that I can make a difference by leading an initiative myself.
That makes me so happy to hear. Congratulations. Good work.
Thank you.
Brave step.
That's being brave, making that room for yourselves.
We have one more hand raised by Janvi.
Hello, everyone. I also wanted to share my experience following up on Ella's question. So I'm a very new entrepreneur, and we are just at the beginning stage of launching our company at this point. But it all started last year when I had a big move from Atlanta to San Jose. And before that, like I have a background in engineering, electronics engineering in India, and here I did my master's in product design and sustainability. And I'm among those person, as Valentina said, like who joined the dots. So I've always been that, like, expanded, constantly learning into strategic foresight or organization development, service design, and how do I, bridge those gaps and connect those dots. But I never had a like kind of work experience I had before was all about I would be the only person who knows about this concept on the team, and I'll push through it, whether it was in the government area. Like I was always involved into social innovation and how do I bring that up, or behavioral change. And the kind of startup I worked with, or even the design thinking consultancy, I'll be the one who'll be pushing about, okay, let's get the systems change or systems thinking into place, or, the workshops on organizational development. And then when I made the move last year, I lost my job, but, everything is going on. And I used to volunteer with a lot of different organizations, like Climate Designers being one of it. And we were at the Coyama Valley in Santa Barbara, understanding what's going on with the farmers over there, with the water policy issue. And that kind of sparked my inspiration that everything that I've been doing up till now connects the dots here. And, it's the right time that I can start something. Now I have a husband who has a full-time job and I don't have to worry about the other things. And the same time, I had two more partners, like who were equally passionate about food systems, and all three of us share a different background. Like I am good with strategy, someone is good with tech, and the third person, she's really good with animation and graphic design. So we all three came together and we had that commitment, and now we are actually launching our company. So it's a big move. And with that, like, at this point, there are a lot of questions also, like people who have experience in entrepreneurship of what not to do, what to be careful for, because our organization focuses a lot on collaboration and partnerships. And there's a thin line, where you can slip into doing something which should not be done, like, in the long run phase. So, yeah, right now we are in the phase where we would appreciate more of mentorship as well. So, yeah.
That's awesome, Janvi. We have time for one more question by Kay. Kay, do you want to speak up? Kay, did you have?
Okay, you on mute.
Yeah.
Hate that. Sorry, guys. I'm Chris Kokofer. Actually, Kay Chesterfield is the name of my business. I'm in the Bay Area. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to end on this note as well about entrepreneurship. Is I'm working really closely with the California College of Arts, which is a prestigious art school here. And I am working with two departments. One is the furniture department and one is the MBA department. They have one of the only MBA programs in an art school in the country. And what the students are saying is and this is even the furniture students, they do not want status quo. They do not want to design the next piece of furniture to sit in. They want to know how they can help in a sustainable way. So just wanted to share that with you all. We probably have a big crop of entrepreneurs.
Times are changing.
Yes.
Love to hear that. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And on that note, thanks a lot to all our speakers. This was an amazing and informative conversation and discussion between all of you women entrepreneurs. And I'd love to welcome Anna back for the final announcements before we move back to the networking circles. Thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lena. And thank you again to our amazing speakers. That was such an insightful and interesting conversation. So, right, let's move on before we get into the, sorry, I'm like multitasking right now. Before we move on into the breakout sessions, wanted to give you a heads up on our next eCircle. So on July 26th, we're going to have Janet Cohen of Momentum join us. Janet is the Chief Product Officer of Momentum. She has extensive experience securing public funding, having raised over $50 million at this point for various clients. So she'll be giving us some insights into some tips and tricks you can all leverage to raise public funds for your company. If you are interested in becoming a member of WCS, if you are not already, I encourage you to sign up. You can scan this QR code right here. And if you sign up today, you will be reimbursed for today's event. And if you have any questions, want to hear more about the volunteer or WCS experience, definitely reach out to any one of the members here. We have asterisks in front of our names about our experience. We're definitely all happy to chat with you about that. If your company is interested in becoming a corporate member, we have that option as well. Corporate membership is a great way to elevate your corporate brand, offer professional development opportunities to your employees, and get connected with other industry professionals from around the world. Now let's check out some exciting events that we have coming up. So on June 26th, we have our New York chapter. We are officially launching that. So please join us on June 26th. We'll have panel discussions, networking, and it'll be a bunch of fun. So if you are in the New York area, definitely join that event. On July 10th, if you're attending the Pacific Northwest Climate Tech Week or are just in that area, come join WCS for some tea, some coffee, and get the networking going as we kick off Climate Week. On July 7th, we have a members only networking session. So if you are WCS members, come meet other members and network amongst our community. And on August 17th, we have a Fashioning the Future Sustainable and Inclusive Design event. So if you're in the San Francisco area, definitely come join us for this event to talk about the intersection of sustainability, inclusivity, and sustainable practices within the fashion industry. If you don't already follow us on social media, here are our handles. Please follow us, sign up for our newsletter to stay connected and receive information on any of the upcoming events and opportunities. Additionally, if you would like to help rep WCS, we have some very tasteful merch items. I personally love our wine tumbler, and we have the Future is Female t-shirt. So if you are interested in purchasing some merch, you can use WCS 15 off for 15% off your order. Really quickly before we head into our breakout rooms, we really would like to say thank you to our lovely volunteers. Ella, I will emphasize again, such a pleasure working with you on this event. And thank you to Denise, Marky, Maria, Lena for moderating today, and Fatime and Arilla for supporting this event on the chat and producer items. All right, and again, thank you to Armstrong World Industries for sponsoring this event. We seriously cannot put these events on without the support of our event sponsors. If you are interested in sponsoring a WCS event, please reach out to us. Sponsoring an event provides significant exposure to a target audience of professionals and thought leaders. We have over 14,000 LinkedIn followers, over 3,000 Twitter followers, and a newsletter reaching over 6,000 subscribers. So you can really gain some visibility on your brand. So definitely reach out to us for more information.